Welcome back to FedTalks. I'm FedScoop Editor-in-Chief Billy Mitchell, and I'm joined now by Dorothy Aronson, CIO and CDO of the National Science Foundation. Dorothy, it's so great to talk to you. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks, Billy. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Always a pleasure to
Good.
chat with you. You always have great things to say, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say today about the federal workforce and federal reskilling and upskilling efforts. So let's dive right in. There's a lot going on in this space. Obviously, there's some government-wide programs hosted by the CIO Council that we've heard of. But I wanted to start today by giving our listeners or our viewers a little bit of context when it comes to reskilling and upskilling. I feel like these terms get conflated a lot and are used interchangeably, but I assume there's a little bit of a distinction when it comes to the usage of those two words. So I'd love to hear, what's the difference between reskilling and upskilling, and is there one that makes more sense for the federal space, or is it something that in different contexts one's better than the other?
Well, there's really pretty significant difference between these two words, even though they sound alike.
Yeah.
So upskilling is where a person learns new skills in order to do their current job differently or better. And this happens when technology is introduced into a job that may have been more or less manual before. So when people move from using regular old arithmetic to adding machines, and from adding machines to computers or Excel or whatever, those are all upskilling uh, uh, opportunities. Whereas reskilling is when a particular industry is completely changed. And so you have to move from being, say, an accountant to being a yoga instructor or something, completely different. So the reskilling is when a person in the middle of their career really needs to make a major change. And actually, I think that I believe in the future there's going to be a lot more continuous reskilling and upskilling because of the advances of the rapid advances of technology.
That's a great start. So as I mentioned when we began, there's a couple different programs that are either in the past or currently ongoing. There's the Federal Cybersecurity Reskilling Academy, and then there's an ongoing upskilling program on data science. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the progress of those past and ongoing initiatives. And it seems like these are really effective ways of building a stronger and more competent technology workforce within the government, because as we all know, the federal government really has a hard time recruiting and bringing in new people. So this gives opportunity to kind of boost the skills internally. But I'd love to hear how those programs are going, and if that's the case, about bringing injecting new talent from within.
So it's really interesting to think about what makes a federal employee, what makes a person decide to join the federal government. And most of us are inspired by the mission. And so the thing we know and we care about most is the mission within our agency rather than the specific skill that we use to move that mission forward. And the things that federal employees know is the business of government, which is not easy to learn. So what I like to see these reskilling academies work because they maintain the knowledge, they allow us to retain the knowledge of the business of government uh, and um, and keep those people who are inspired to serve uh, working, even though their skills, their prior skills, were no longer sufficient to do the job. So where we are, there's always a lot of retraining, reskilling opportunities going on in the federal government. And like a couple of years ago, one of the big ones in the news was there's a cyber reskilling academy where people were very competitive approach to getting people involved in learning. This was really a reskilling effort where people from different areas were brought together in order to learn new about how to be cyber experts. And the program was great, and the people were inspired. And we learned at the end that they needed practical experience in order to really be absorbed into the workforce in the cyber area. And so CISA, which is an organization within DHS, took that learning and has uh, multiplied the value of that program by adding a 9-month detail on the end, so that people who come through that program are already ready to enter the door as cybersecurity experts. So these pilots are really important in that they build on each other. A year ago in the data area at NSF, through the CIO Council, we funded something we called the Udacity experiment, which was a really cool online program that people across the government were able to participate in. And they loved it until they got to a certain point. And what we were hearing about in the middle was people were loving the program and they were going back and teaching their coworkers what they were learning and applying it on the job. So this is an upskilling opportunity. And the big difference there was that it was great because people could take the technology skills that they were learning and apply them immediately. But what happened in this program was that when the upskilling went beyond what they needed in their daily work, they became less connected to the program. So we keep learning. And so this year, what we're doing in the data area under the CIO Council is we are funding a program where the people are already IT people or people in the data industry, and we're upskilling them in place. So, and only to the extent that they need. And we're giving them capstone projects and things that apply at their current jobs so that they get credit for doing work with the skills they've learned at their current jobs. So those are just a couple of examples of things that have been going on, and it's very exciting to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting to watch, and it's great to hear that there's a little bit of learning from the administrative side. That there's adjustments and there's that kind of agile approach that we're not going to get it right the first time, but we'll make it work down the line. I know that the data science one that's currently ongoing is all virtual. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I imagine that's something we're going to have to deal with for quite a while. And it could, in fact, be an opportunistic point where we can actually give people more training. We can learn another learning opportunity in this to kind of expand this current virtual environment and train more people. So I'd love to, you mentioned Udacity. I know that's an online program. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, this changing move to virtual remote work and how it might provide people more opportunities to train up, just because people are used to working in this kind of new remote workplace.
Right. I think that when I think about virtual learning, I think about it in two ways. There's online courses where individuals learn asynchronously, and then there's virtual like Zoom, there's teaching in a virtual environment. And both of those are good for different kinds of people. And I think that the pandemic has inspired us all to focus on doing whatever we do in our daily lives online. So I've seen both of those kinds of programs move forward. I kind of mentioned earlier that there was a capstone project, which for those of you who don't know, because that was a term I only learned a couple of years ago. So at the end of certain degree programs, you do big projects using what you've learned, and so those are called capstone projects. And so in the data science area, we're doing a lot of these capstone projects because they help the people, even if you're learning virtually in an asynchronous way, at the end you get together as teams and work on projects. And the reason I think that's very important is that I believe the best way you continue to learn and use the way you learn is by applying what you've learned. And also by sharing what you've learned with others. And in the data science area, people build on each other's products. So one person will build an algorithm or a basic component that other people can then use. And so all of this networking, learning how to work as groups is a very important component. And I think that the virtual learning or the allows people in different locations and with different um, data problems to work together. So it's really a very interesting cultural shift from you know the kind of schooling I was used to.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So we know that reskilling and upskilling are probably, it's only part of the arsenal, if you will, of what the federal IT workforce or the CIO Council is thinking about when it comes to the federal IT workforce. I know that the CIO Council recently came out with a report kind of assessing what the state of the IT workforce and sort of those efforts to boost it look like. So I'd love to hear what some of those other supplementary efforts are and sort of some of the top conclusions that came from that report.
Definitely. The CIO Council published this report. So go to cio.gov and read the entire report by yourself. It's actually not too long, but it did come out with 10 different kinds of recommendations for things that people could do to help upskill upskill is not the right word, to empower, to make a more powerful, stronger technology workforce for the federal government. And it included a really broad range of things about retention and hiring, and training was definitely one of them. One of the things that I feel strongly about is that the skills of the future that are really important are more general. So where a lot of what we've been talking about, excuse me, has been specific technology skills, I think it's possible that a technology workforce that understands technology but doesn't have to understand the detail of all the technology innovations as they evolve is probably important. So being a really excellent project manager, for example, is one of the things that the document recommends, along with things like being a good part of a procurement team. Since a lot of what we do is feds working with contractors, being a member of a procurement assessment evaluation, understanding how to make good purchasing decisions is very important to feds. But also, how do we reward outstanding performers? That's something I wouldn't need to know because not being an outstanding performer, but for other people, that would probably be an important retention skill. And then, leveraging hiring authorities. There's been a lot of special attention paid to bringing on cyber workforce and being able to do that more quickly, so that when you make an offer, by the time you go, after the interview process, we cut the time to hire. So all of those things become very important in grabbing the right skills off the market when so many other people are looking for those same people.
Yeah, for sure. So as we close out, we have just a little bit of time left, but I'd love, you mentioned some future skills. I'll take those words out of your mouth, and I'll ask you, for those people in the audience today watching who are interested in upskilling or reskilling or just general training, refining their skill set, what sort of emerging skills or training skill areas would you recommend that they look into to sort of make themselves ready for the future in the federal IT marketplace?
So for those of you listening who are, say, in elementary school, I think you should be, getting along with others. Teamwork is important. Being able to share ideas clearly is very important. For those of us who are a little bit older, I think data science and data analytics is fascinating, a really growing field. Also, if you're interested probably in earning a lot of money, now is the time to dive into data science, because striking while the iron's hot. It's an emerging area. But really, I just believe that communication, empathy is a very important skill. All of these things, as we move forward, I believe that we will be mixing it up a lot more. So it will be fewer tech people just talking to tech people, but it'll be, a mix of people talking to each other, and we need to be able to understand each other.
Absolutely. That's what I always hear. You need some, not just diversity in the traditional sense, but diversity of thought and skills, and not
Right.
non-traditional tech skills being
Right.
inserted. So that I totally hear that. Dorothy Aronson, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. This has been a great conversation. So I appreciate your time and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day at FedTalks.
Thank you, Billy. Bye.